Okay, so I'm standing here getting ready to start this nugget, which you can see the title. Configuring a Cisco device, programs and console connections. And I'm reading that title to myself, looking at it, and as I read it, I'm like, that is so anticlimactic just looking at that title, because everything that this nugget right here represents is like action, to where, yes, we're going to be looking at how we connect to our Cisco device and configure it using a console connection, using a serial rollover cable and all that. But it's like the image, if I could draw it up here, the image that I get in my mind is this big white slate with this big button in the middle, and it just says go. Like, for instance, if you ever walk in an IT room, a lot of upper end IT rooms for companies all over the place will have the halide, to where if there's a fire in the IT room, you hit this big old red button on the wall. And what happens is, well, honestly, I've never been in a room where we've hit the button, but what happens is essentially halide, which is kind of like dry fire extinguisher, will drop from the ceiling. All the power goes out. I mean, it's like a take down everything button and just dump halide on everything. But it keeps your equipment from getting drenched with water. So that's the goal. So every time you walk into the IT room and you see what I mean, it's so luscious. Like, you're looking at this big old red button on the wall. It's got the glass case over it and all that, and you just want to. I mean, it's totally like every IT person envisions like a slow motion made for TV movie where they're running in there and they're like, no, and they actually get to push the big button. So anyway, all of that leads up to this. This is the big button. Like, as we move into this nugget, yes, we're going to be getting connected, but this is the big button that launches us into Cisco. Now, I know some of you are thinking, well, haven't we been doing Cisco all this time? Well, yes, but concepts, my dear Watson, concepts. What we're about to move into is the fun part. And I almost bit my tongue as I said, it's not that the concepts aren't fun. It's awesome to be able to get it, and you have to have that. I mean, obviously, if you don't understand what you're doing, you can't get anywhere. But the fun part of Cisco is in actually doing it and doing a rollout, getting everything working correctly. It's like architecture, right? You can draw up plans all day, but until somebody hammers the first board into place, nothing really takes effect. So that's what we're at. And this is board number 1, getting the nail in on configuring our Cisco device. Console connections are what allow us to configure the Cisco device. So first things first, what is a console connection? Well, every Cisco device has one. It is a console port. It's often, matter of fact, I've never seen one that's not labeled with kind of this lightish bluish. I'm sure my wife would know exactly what color that is, but this lightish bluish console color. It is an RJ45 jack, which is the same exact cable tip as Ethernet uses. However, you don't plug a normal Ethernet cable into it. You use what's called a console cable. Now, some people will call them rollover cables, because you might have made cables before. Maybe that was part of your history. If not, I encourage you to go out there and just crimp a cable. It's a rite of passage. But when you make cables, inside there are 8 individual wires, and you can make what's called a straight through. I talked about this, yeah? Yes, I did. A straight through or a crossover cable, where you kind of, on each side of the connections, you flip those wires in different ways. So the send, which most people will write TX, and receive, which is RX, pins will end up matching up. So when one device, let's say it's a computer over here, communicates to the other side, they're able to talk because their pins line up for transmit and receive. And whatever this guy transmits, this guy is matched to receive, and this guy transmits, and this guy's matched. So that's the normal Ethernet cable. So I say all that to say these are not normal Ethernet cables. They are considered rollover, to where if there's 8 pins in there, 1 through 8, man, I just have a fat pen. Hang on, I have to skinny this guy up. All right. So if I've got 8 pins over there, and I've got 8 over on this side, this is 1 through 8, I actually roll them to where pin 1 matches to pin 8, pin 2 to pin 7, pin 3 to pin 6, pin 4 to pin 5. So literally, if I were to cut this off and put an Ethernet cable, Ethernet tip on this side, that's what you would see, is all of these pins are actually rolled over. And this is the older style of connection that used to be shipped. Now it looks like you're like, okay, one's blue, one's black. What's the difference? Well, in this one, this is a little snap-on adapter. To where the cable itself, this is RJ45 here. I'll just put 45. It actually, if I look behind there, it is RJ45. It just clips into this serial adapter because back in the day, I don't know if you go back this far, but every time I would buy a Cisco device, it would always come with two of these. You would have the big 25 pin? 25 pin serial connector. And now some of you might be like, is that like a printer port? No, that's parallel. There was a 25 pin serial connector. You'd use it for like scanners and stuff like that. And then there's the 9 pin, which is what this is. Excuse me. But the 25 pin had, so they would ship you an RJ45 and you would put on the adapter, whatever your computer went. So as 25 pin eventually disintegrated and nobody used that anymore, that's when I started seeing these cables come out to where Cisco would just ship them as, the 9 pin serial adapter would be integrated into the cable. That was probably about 7 years ago or so. I first started seeing those cables. So they've been out for a while. Now the funny thing is, 9 pin, who has a serial port anymore? Nobody. Everything's getting skinnier and skinnier and skinnier. I mean, like take a MacBook Air laptop. Where are you going to put a serial port? So that's where this guy comes in. Most of the time, if you have a modern device, modern desktop, modern laptop, they've eliminated the serial ports. You're going to need to go buy a USB to serial adapter. And I don't know if I've brought it up in this series yet, but the best place to go for these guys, I should say the cheapest place to go, is actually monoprice.com. What an amazing vendor. They're actually over in California. They're one state away from me. And I would say the biggest reason, of course, this place has super cheap prices. Best thing you can get from this place is let's see, where are we? Networking. Cat 6 or Cat 5 network cables. I mean, you find just amazing prices. Just to give you an idea, I went to Fry's Electronics just because I forgot to order some before I was doing a deployment. And I picked up some 7-foot cables, and they were $6.99 a cable, $6.99. And it's like I had to buy them. I had to buy 8 of them. And I'm like, are you kidding me? As I'm walking out of Fry's Electronics, I could have got these for $1.67 if I bought one. If I bought whatever 20 of them, $1.58. So anyway, I'm not trying to sell you monoprice. I should get some kind of cut for how much I send this people. But they have USB to serial. They have some of the cheapest USB to serial adapters. Maybe this guy? USB yeah, that's right. So the cheapest USB to serial adapters I've ever seen. Normally, these things are, $20-$30 if you go to a Fry's Electronics. So anyway, this is where I would send you. Is to monoprice.com. Pick up some of those, and that will give you your USB connection. Now, where's my pen? Over here, this is new, where Cisco devices are now starting to come in where they have a console port that uses the normal RJ45, but are giving you a direct USB option as well. That's probably going to be the future. Now, it's going to take a long time for it to get there and a long time for the new cable types to permeate the market that allow you to do this. But the brand new Cisco devices are all having this direct USB connection. Someday, and will it be within the next 10 years? I don't know. But someday that RJ45 jack will be gone. It will probably be within the next 10 years because these things are going away. The things that come to me when I pause to change slides a lot of times is just profound. I'm sitting there going, okay, so I've described a console connection. That's a rollover cable. And I'm oh, wait a sec. Did I tell you what this is for? What this is for is how to configure your Cisco device when you pull it out of the box. I mean, when you pull it out of the box, it doesn't have an IP address. You don't have a way of getting in there and managing it. Most Cisco devices, unless you buy like the small business kind, don't have like a default. If you go to the store and buy like a Netgear or D-Link thing off of the shelf, it has a default IP address. It'll have a DHCP server where it's handing out IP addresses for you to use. It's kind of got a little base configuration to get you started. Not so in the Cisco world. Cisco most of the time will have nothing on there. So this is how you configure your device initially. Now, a lot of people will actually call this out of band management. The reason they call it that is because you're not actually crossing the production network or anything to configure this. I mean, you could walk into any IT room. This is an older switch. Find wow, it looks like a 1900, but we'll say a little newer than that. Find a Cisco device, plug into the console port with your laptop sitting on your knee or on a desk nearby you, and start configuring it. It's out of band. You're not actually telnetting to it or using SSH. You're not working remotely or anything like that. Now, where this is going, or I'm going with this out-of-band management, is a lot of people will get access servers. So, envision this. You walk into a company, they don't just usually have a switch sitting on a desk. There's usually a rack of equipment where they have lots and lots and lots of Cisco devices. There's your Cisco firewalls. There's your Cisco switches. There's your Cisco routers. All the different devices sitting inside of this rack. A lot of companies, as they grow, will have one device that they'll know is their access server. And what it is it's a lot of times a Cisco router equipped with special interfaces that have, a lot of times you'll hear people refer to octal cables, which is a cable with 8 individual, that's the octo, 8 individual tips that come out of it, and it plugs into the console port of each one of those devices. So this device, this access server, allows you to be sitting in Hawaii on a beach, and you can actually telnet into this and get to the console port of each Cisco device in the rack. And we say, okay, great. Why? What? I mean, like, what's the point of that? Can't I just telnet straight to the firewall or straight to the switch? Well, a lot of times, yes, you can, but there's some things you just can't do from a telnet connection. For example, you can't watch a device boot from a telnet connection. Think about it. If you reboot the device, it goes down. You lose your telnet connection. But the beauty of being plugged into the console port is you actually get to watch a device boot. Think of it like a computer. You ever work on a relative's computer or a friend's computer sitting at their house? You'll do like a log me in or go to my PC or a join.me session or whatever kind of remote access thing you do so that you're able to see their screen. But there's always that hold your breath point where you're like, okay, I need you to reboot it. And immediately when they reboot, you lose your connection. And they're like, okay, yeah, I saw some stuff fly across on the screen. And you're like, well, what did it say? I don't know. It's stuff. It's just stuff. And you're like, well, what did it say? That's key. I need that information. Well, it's the same thing with these Cisco devices. A lot of times you reboot them, you lose your remote session. That's where the access server comes in. I can actually watch it boot. I can even upgrade the software. I mean, there's a lot I'm able to do if I can get to this thing out of band. So here's how you do it. Get a console cable. Cisco devices come with console cables. If you're a little creative, you can make your own. You can actually make a rollover cable. I showed you, pin 1, 2, 3 match to 8765. I mean, you can make your own cable. Go buy a serial adapter. If you can. You can buy them online, like if you go to eBay if you don't have one. But just know you shouldn't pay more than $1 for a console cable. I mean, I went on there when I was preparing for this nugget, and I saw somebody selling a console cable for $19. I'm like, good grief, what are these people doing? Searching for somebody who doesn't know what they're doing. So console cables comes with every Cisco device. Plug that into the back of your PC. If you are lucky enough to still have, I just had this up. If you're lucky enough to still have a serial port, then you're probably unlucky because you need an upgraded computer. But you can just plug straight in. That's the benefit. Otherwise, you have to set up a USB to serial connection, and then physically plug into the RJ45 end of the console port. Now, most Cisco devices, the console port will be on the back. Kind of hesitate because I'm looking here at the 2 Cisco devices sitting in front of me. Actually, let me kick on the camera because I think at this stage seeing a lot of this is good. I've actually got 3 Cisco, not 2, 3 Cisco devices in front of me. 2 of them are these are Cisco 2620 2621XM devices. So you can see if, and let me zoom this a little closer. Right here, these two yellow ports, those are going to be fast Ethernet. Again, Cisco's scheme on color is very standardized. Anytime you see yellow, that's like a working router interface. So fast Ethernet 0/0 is sitting right here. We'll talk about the modules in just a second. 0/1 is here. Then, and this is, you're going, what is that? I lost the plate that goes there. Then right next to that, I see a console port. That's the light blue one we've been talking about. That's where I would plug into. And then an auxiliary port. Auxiliary ports, you'll see them on, not all Cisco devices have them, but usually routers have them. Auxiliary think of it like another kind of console port, but it's designed for a modem. Like if you want to plug a modem into this device, primarily for remote access, that's where you would put it. So I've got two of these devices right here, and then I looked up, I'm like, oh, well, so these are on the back, like on, well, I can't really flip them around, but on the other side of that device is the front, so there's the back. So this is a Cisco UC520, where the front of the device is everything. The power goes into the back. So right here you see yellow all the way across. Anything yellow is not console. So this is a swouter, and it's a switch and a router. It actually has a switch built into it right here. And over to the left here is that light blue console port. So that would be where I connect on this. So here's the back of these devices, the front of this device. It's not really consistent. Most of the time on switches, which is this device right here, you're going to find the console port on the back of it, not on the front. So don't plug the console port in up here. It won't damage it or anything like that, but you'll feel silly. Routers, you'll find it wherever all the rest of the interfaces are. Okay, so I now have the console cable plugged into the serial port of my computer. Check. I've got the other end going to that blue console port on the Cisco device. Check. Now what? Well, now we have to get a terminal program because everything that you do in the Cisco world is command line based. Actually, let me put a little sidebar into this just to give you a heads up. Cisco is primarily a command line configured device, or I'll say command line driven company, if you will, with secondarily graphic interface, GUIs that are out there. And there are GUIs that can manage Cisco devices like the Cisco SDM or the Cisco ASDM for their firewalls. These are kind of web-based or Java-based graphic devices. However, you're never going to be able to do as much as you can through a GUI as you can through the command line. You just don't have the flexibility with point-and-click interfaces. Now, I will say there are other companies out there, a lot of them, who are primarily graphic-based or GUI-based kind of point-and-click, with their secondary being command line, where the command line isn't as standardized, it's not as pretty or anything like that, but they have a nice GUI up front. So there are advantages to both, but we are in the Cisco world, so we're going to be sticking at the command line level. Now, all of these programs you see on the screen, my sidebar is over, are command line configuration tools for console connections. I'm gonna label them real quick. Little F's. Now these F's are not because they fail, but the F means free. Like you can just go anywhere and download these programs for free on your computer. So I mean, just to give you an example, let's start off with PuTTY at the top. I'm gonna go to let's bust out Google and do PuTTY in my search, and right there, first link is PuTTY download page. I just come here and click on putty.exe, and bam, I have a program that I can use. It's a really good program that I can use to handle my console, my serial connections. Now, the beauty of PuTTY, I'll say the advantage of PuTTY is its simplicity. I mean, you saw right there, any device that has an internet connection, I download it, I run it. It's not an installed program. It just runs from whatever. It's an all-in-one executable. I can telnet, I can SSH, and over here on the right-hand side, I have my serial port connection. Now, there are a lot of other programs that give you tons of serial options and so on, but really what PuTTY presents to you is the main thing that you need: what COM port and what speed. Now you can see down here I have serial where I can go further, where we've got our data bits, stop bits, flow control, all that kind of stuff. Now coming back over here, this is Cisco's recommended serial configuration, like how you want to run your serial port. First off is the COM port. Now you say, well, how do I know that? Well, if you have a built-in serial port on your computer, most of the time it's going to be COM1. It's just how things are. However, when you get that USB to serial adapter, it's like a box of chocolates. You never know what you're going to get. Best way to figure it out is to go to your computer. I'm in Windows world, right? I right-click on Computer and go to Manage because I'm after the Device Manager. And right up top, I'm going to click on Device Manager. Over here, Ports, COM, and LPT, and I look and I go, okay, so it gave my USB to serial adapter a COM4 identifier. So I'll go in there and say, okay, well then I'm going to adjust my COM port. I can do it from here or I can do it from the main one to COM4. Now you can see right here, data bits 8, stop bits 1, which I can see reflected right here. Flow control, you can see by default is X on, X off. That's a way for a serial port to tell something to slow down. You can put it to none. I find if you leave it on, X off, it usually works, but same time, what you see on the right-hand side is Cisco's suggestion. You'll a lot of times see it written as 9600 8N1N. Now, I've brought up PuTTY right here, and you look and you're like, okay, nothing is happening. What's the scoop? Get my camera out here. I can tell you nothing's happening because it's not plugged in. Now, as soon as I plug this device in, get my power cord, you can see that PuTTY is starting to give me output. What we're actually watching is the boot process of a Cisco device. Now, a couple things on that. When you saw that black screen when you open it, that's normal even for a device that is running. It's not like Cisco devices are constantly just spewing out information for you to stare at coming out the console port. So a lot of times when you first plug in and connect to even a running Cisco device, you'll just be staring at a blank screen going, okay, what do I do? Best thing is just click in the window and press the Enter key, which will bring up the prompt or have you get to a login or whatever the case is. Now, I didn't plan on this, but what a great time to talk about the boot process of a Cisco device. What you're watching, I want you to glance at the screen. You just see this, all of this action here that happened. That is the Cisco device copying its iOS image from flash, meaning it has flash memory, which is slow but stable, meaning if the power goes out, it doesn't lose itself. But what it does when it's going through this little boot process up here is it's actually copying the contents of flash. Like here's the Cisco device, copying the contents of flash and moving that into RAM, into running memory, and actually decompressing at the same time. So the iOS image, the software of Cisco is sitting there compressed in flash, and as it copies it up into RAM, it decompresses. Now, the boot process of a Cisco device can be anywhere from and I know right now you're looking going, what's happening? It's broken. It's not broken. It's just giving you all the status messages that you'll get used to that. It's normal on boot. But what was I talking about? Oh, so everything runs in RAM. Now, okay, I was saying the boot process of a Cisco device can take anywhere from, what was that? Maybe a minute and a half or so, 90 seconds, maybe 60 seconds, all the way up to, I have, for instance, sitting here in my pile down here is some 2621 XMs, which I know if I power those guys on, I've got the advanced enterprise iOS, which is almost every feature you can support. I mean, the boot of those guys takes 5 to 6 minutes. And I tell you that because if you have a network down situation, that 5 to 6 minutes can feel like 5 to 6 years, because that's a major outage if a Cisco device goes down. So reboots of these devices shouldn't be done, during business hours. It should always be scheduled. But that's the boot process. So what we saw was it actually copying the iOS from flash into RAM. Now we're able to work with it. Now, I can type whatever I want to, press the Enter key. It's my command line base. I'm going to get into all the commands a little bit. One of the things that I do want to mention is the speed of the console port on Cisco devices is 9600 baud. Now that's like a slow modem. So if you're getting a lot of output, like you saw, for instance, let me get into here and do it's called a show running config, where I can actually watch the running config. Now you can actually almost, as I'm scrolling that down, your eyes can almost see that. I know it's fast, but almost see that content go by. Compared to seeing that over a telnet or SSH session, it's very slow. So if you are looking to get gobs of information in or out of your device, 9600 baud is painful. Now, you can change that speed on the console port, but most people don't care because not many people manage it eternally or indefinitely over the console port. They'll telnet or SSH, at which point that output is a lot faster. Instead of being able to see it scroll just like you saw right there, it's like zip, zip, zip. I mean, the whole page fills at once kind of thing. Like all the output is done. So that is PuTTY. Terraterm is actually, that's the one I've been using in the videos. So PuTTY Advantage, it's got a lot of features. It's free. You download it. It's an all-in-one. You don't have to install anything. Terraterm is actually what I've been using up till now. Have I done any config? This is what I use for most of my recordings. It installs. It's another free one that you can download. The advantage of Terraterm that I like is how clean you can make it. I like being able to eliminate the menu bars, like all it is a black window in my green font. I love the color green for some reason when I'm configuring. So I can kind of, this is just, I just like a clean window sometimes. So if I'm doing trainings like I'm doing now, or demonstrations, which you might end up doing for people as you learn more of Cisco, I like Terraterm just because there's no distractions. I'm right into the config. Hyperterm, oh, don't use it. Hyperterm came with Windows and Windows 2000, Windows 95, Windows 98. I mean, all those ones. It's just not a fun program, but if you must, it's there. The one that comes with Windows is buggy. And Microsoft didn't want to pay the author to fix them. By the way, Microsoft did not write Hyperterm. They got it from somebody else. So you can, I think it's Hillgrave. Yeah, the author's last name is Hillgrave. If you Google Hyperterm, you'll find hillgrave.com or something. He has Hyperterm Private Edition, which is free for people that aren't Microsoft, and it fixes all the bugs if you really want to use Hyperterm. Minicom, only reason I put on there is this is a good Linux one. Or for those of you that are using Apple. Apple computers have Minicom, or you can download it onto there because it's a Linux Foundation, a free BSD port. So that's one that you can use on that side. This one, notice it's the only one without the F flag. It is not free. Typical price is $99 for the standard user. It works on Windows and Apple, and once you use it, you will never go back. Secure CRT, if you are in Cisco for the long haul, you will want to either have your company buy this or you will buy it yourself. It does, tabbed browsing. It can record everything that you're doing. It does scripting. You can have it automatically log in. For example, instead of having to type usernames and passwords, you can have it run a script at login. Not that I recommend this, but automatically types in all the passwords that you need, so you're just sitting where you need to be from the minute you get in there. So Secure CRT, in the long run, will definitely be the program you end up with if you are staying in Cisco. However, in the short run, I didn't buy Secure CRT until I was in Cisco maybe 3 years. I was like, hey, why pay $100 when I can do everything that you need can be done in here. This is like, the lazy boy recliner. Bite my tongue. It's once we've hit that go button. It's kind of like I just want to unleash on you and go into all of the different aspects of working with the Cisco device, which is coming. But I've got to cut it off there. So what did we talk about, and what do I want you to do with this? What we saw was what the console port is, how we, you take the Cisco device out of the box. It's like, well, what do you do with it? How do you get in and configure it? It's all through that console connection. We looked at the kind of cables that are there, the serial USB adapters, terminal programs that you can use that are available, all of that. So what do I want you to do with this? Well, as I mentioned at the beginning of this series, one of the best things you can do for yourself early on is to purchase some lab equipment. Now, I know there is GNS3, which I'll talk about later on in the series. It's a great way of learning Cisco after you've been in there for a while, and you can do all kinds of lab experiments. And even early on, GNS3 is a great program to use. However, you just can't replace having a Cisco device to actually look at it and say, oh, that port connects to that. At least this early on in your Cisco journey is to be able to see it and plug in and go, okay, that's how I do it. You don't want to have the first time you do that, when you're actually hired on and staring at a Cisco device and kind of looking and scoping it out, like, okay, where is these things? Because all I've done is GNS3, which is great for learning the iOS, but for physically connecting. Okay, so with that being said, I would say grab some lab equipment, which you can grab from Nugget 1, where I go through all of what lab do I suggest. Get connected. Try out all of those free terminal programs that you can. Putty, Minicom, Terraterm. Find which one works best for you. You can even download a trial of Secure CRT for, I think, 30 days if you want to check out. It's a full-featured trial, and take a look at that. Get connected. See, power onto your device. Watch the boot process. Do the boot process a couple times, because we're going to be talking about what happens there in future nuggets. So just get familiar with how you can configure that device out of the box. I hope this has been informative for you, and I'd like to thank you for viewing.